The House will come back to order, and we will resume the 5-minute question and answer period. The chair now recognizes...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a statement from Secretary Vilsack from September 25th stating that the WIC program, which is a federally funded program administered by the states, will expire for 7 million moms and children if the government shuts down. Without objection, so ordered. The chair now recognizes Mr. Fallon from Texas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Words mean things, or at least they should. Here's Joe Biden's words from August 28, 2019. First of all, I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything to do with their business. From September of the same year, I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. October, same year, quote, I don't discuss business with my son. Were Joe Biden's words true? No, they were false. So why did he lie repeatedly? In an interview back in 2019 with The New Yorker, even Hunter admitted that he talked to his dad about business, specifically Burisma. Many of Hunter Biden's business associates have testified Joe Biden met with them. Two of the ones closest to Hunter, Rob Walker and Devin Archer, were among them. So they not only spoke to him, they took, a lot of the business associates took photos with him. They played golf with him. Joe Biden gave them White House tours. He wrote letters of recommendation for their children and shared fancy dinners as well. So let's also talk about patterns. Yuri Luzkov and Yelena Baturina. They are Russian. They were married, Russian oligarch billionaires. Michael McFaul, the U.S. ambassador to Russia, ID'd Luzkov as being corrupt. Yelena Baturina wires $3.5 million to Hunter Biden. Soon thereafter, who does she have dinner with? Then Vice President Joe Biden. Kenez Rakishev, and Karim Mazimov, Kazakhstani nationals. Mazimov used to be the prime minister. He's now in prison. Rakishev wires $142,300 to Hunter Biden. The very next day, Hunter Biden buys a Porsche for $142,300. And then soon after, who do you think Kenez Rakishev has dinner with? Say it with me. Then Vice President Joe Biden. Vadim Pazarsky and Mykola Zolchevsky, the CEO and CFO of Burisma. U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt, calls Zolchevsky a poster child of corruption. Those two fellas paid Hunter Biden's shell companies a total of $3.3 million. And who do you think Vadim Pazarsky had dinner with? Again, say it with me all at once. Then Vice President Joe Biden. So here's a pattern. You have crooked foreigners that deliver pallets of cash to the Bidens, and then they have dinner with Joe. And apparently Joe Biden is one hell of an expensive dinner date. And if that's not selling political access, I don't know what is. My Democratic colleagues report ad nauseum when they talk to the media that there's no direct evidence linking Joe Biden to his son's crimes. Really? This is a FD 1023, which is used by the FBI when confidential informants give them information. This 1023 is only as good as the source. It could be garbage or it could be gold. The FBI describes this source as somebody that is highly reliable and very trustworthy. In fact, they've worked with him for over a decade and paid him well over $100,000. What he has given to them is always checked out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is gold. Consider this with weight and gravity. So what does this say? I don't know what the confidential informant's name is, so I'm going to call him Ivan. Ivan is not his real name, but Ivan describes Vadim Pazarsky directly admitting to him in a confidential conversation that they hired a not-so-smart Hunter Biden to protect us, quote, through his dad from all kinds of problems. Then Ivan speaks directly to CEO Zolchevsky, and Zolchevsky confides that Hunter Biden will take care of those corruption issues through his dad. Zolchevsky is being investigated by Viktor Shokin, a Ukrainian prosecutor. Joe Biden suddenly begins to call for Shokin's removal. Now, Ivan is also told by Zolchevsky that it cost him $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million to pay the other. This is direct evidence of naked corruption and bribery. Zolchevsky also admitted to Ivan that both Bidens pushed him to pay them and to keep Hunter Biden on the board. Please keep in mind, these were confidential conversations. Also interesting that Zolchevsky referred to Biden as the big guy, and I doubt he knows Tony Bobulinski. Shokin seized 2 homes, land, and a Rolls-Royce from Zolchevsky. When he was fired, the Ukrainian president admitted in a phone call to none other than Joe Biden that Shokin didn't do anything wrong, but at your behest, we fired him. And then $1 billion of aid that was being withheld was given to Ukraine. And lastly, after Shokin was fired, Hunter Biden and the other members of the Burisma board wrote a letter to the new prosecutor demanding that the investigation into Zlochevsky ended. And you know what? Shockingly, it did. The message was sent, and the Bidens delivered. Mr. Dubinsky, in your experience in financial investigations, you follow, quote unquote, you follow the money. If you were investigating this and looking at $5 million payment from Burisma to Joe Biden, what kinds of information or patterns would you be looking for?
Well, I'd want to know who, what, when, where, and why. What's going on? Why is the money moving? What's it for? What's the substance behind it? And talk to people. Look at documents and talk to people. That's what we do in investigations. I would venture to say everybody in this chamber, if they were the CEO of a company and they saw money moving like that within their own company, they'd want to get to the truth. They'd want to find out, why is that money moving? Why is somebody paying that money out? Those are the questions that need to be asked and get to the bottom of.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, I have another unanimous consent request. I'd like to enter into the record a July 9th, 2016 letter from 3 Burisma board members, including Hunter Biden, to Yuri Lutsenko, who replaced Shokin as the prosecutor general, expressing concern that Mr. Lutsenko had initiated an investigation into Burisma.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair recognizes Mr. Kassar from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to begin with a quote. The people of America elected all 435 of us to do the things they expect Congress to do. Real business, not theater. Try to have some type of prescription drug reform legislation this year. But instead, the majority party is conducting baseless impeachment hearings. Who do we think said this quote? Was it Nancy Pelosi? Maybe Ranking Member Jamie Raskin? Mr. Chairman, you might recognize that quote because you said this in 2019. You said it on the floor of the U.S. House, saying impeaching Donald Trump was political theater. Trump was first impeached for attempting to extort a foreign president into helping the Trump presidential campaign. And if you didn't consider that criminal, how about when Trump was impeached trying to overthrow the results of the presidential election and then incited a violent insurrection against the government? So if you thought that impeaching Trump was political theater, then what would you call this? This is a disgrace. And I hope that someday top Republican officials will find some integrity. In the case of Trump, because you fear his social media wrath, right-wing officials will deny all evidence against Trump, come hell or high water. But in the case of President Joe Biden, you decided to start the impeaching now and figure out the whole evidence thing later. And you still haven't figured it out. Your own Republican-called witnesses today say they don't see the evidence to impeach President Joe Biden. Bunch of stuff about Hunter this, Hunter that, but they've said they don't see the evidence to impeach Joe Biden. That is a disgraceful double standard. It damages our democracy, insults the institution of Congress, and more than anything, disgraces this body in the eyes of the American public. This inquiry is a cynical attempt to tar everyone, to make everyone look suspect, make everyone look corrupt, so that voters just give up and say, there's not much difference here. But we cannot give up on discerning truth from propaganda. We cannot give up on our collective governance. Congress is a place where historically people of enormous integrity have throughout history taken on big challenges of inequality, injustice, instability. We can and must impartially look at the evidence before us and have equal justice under the law. And the evidence before us shows no wrongdoing by President Biden. We haven't seen that evidence throughout the testimony today. Your own Republican-called witnesses have said they haven't seen that kind of evidence. There is separate evidence that supports indictments, unrelated indictments against his son, Hunter, and multiple indictments spanning 91 criminal charges against former President Trump. I, for one, am grateful we have an independent judicial system where a president's son or a former president like Trump can be investigated and prosecuted if they violate the law. It is my firm belief that Hunter and Trump should both face trial and, if guilty, be held accountable for the crimes they've been accused of. Can everyone on the Oversight Committee say the same thing? Will members of the Oversight Committee please raise your hand if you believe both Hunter and Trump should be held accountable for any of the indictments against them if convicted by a jury of their peers. We can take a minute. No, it's serious. This is a serious matter. If y'all need to think about it, we can take a moment and think about it. It is serious. This is very serious. Think about it. Should both Hunter and
Will the
Trump
gentleman yield to a
be held
question?
accountable? I want to see whether you'd raise your hand. Should Hunter and Trump both be held accountable if they are found guilty on any of their indictments? Raise your hand if you think that equal justice under the law applies and Trump should be held accountable. I think it is worse than embarrassing that Republicans won't raise their hands. They refuse to say that equal justice under the law should apply to everyone. And when you step back and think about it,
then what about the
it's kind of
January
scary.
6th defendants?
It's kind of scary. This double standard insults the institutions of Congress that people fought and died to build. This impeachment hearing clearly is not about justice. We cannot say equal justice under the law for everyone except for the guy who holds the leash. I'll yield the rest of my time to Ranking Member Raskin.
Thank you. I think as you were being interrupted by several colleagues, I heard one question posed by the distinguished gentlelady from Georgia who said, what about the January 6th defendants, all of whom had lawyers, due process, the presumption of innocence, and they were convicted of various things, including assaulting federal officers and metropolitan police.
What about
as well as
the BLM rioters
point
and
of
$2 billion of damage
Mr. Raskin,
in
if I can
America?
take my time back.
Yes, I'll yield
We've
back.
heard, because it wasn't on the microphones, multiple members saying it's wrong that January 6th rioters were convicted by a jury of their peers. That is disturbing. We've started to get used to it, but we can't get used to it.
Gentleman's
It's scary.
time has expired. Now, Chair recognizes Mr.
Chairman, point of order.
Perry.
Mr. Point of order.
Chair recognizes Mr. Fallon for a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent to enter the FD 1023 into the record.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair now recognizes Mr. Perry from Pennsylvania for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In an attempt to establish some patterns here and get to actual facts out, the media won't report. The president's son seemed to benefit often from government positions as far back as 1996. He received his first job at MBNA. Then Senator Joe Biden had supported the controversial bankruptcy bill, which really favored the company to the peril of average citizens, and he got the name Senator for MNBA. After which Hunter then, he continued to benefit from his father's public positions. And in 2011, he was contacted by Che Fang, who's a Chinese politician and businessman. They wanted to form a joint investment firm that then became a subsidiary of the Bank of China. Now, it seems like the president's the president's son's only skill is leveraging his family name. It essentially seems like it comes to him like swimming comes to a fish. If we could put up on the screen an email from between Devin Archer and the president's son. And if you can see here where he's asked, why does the super chairman love me so much? And the answer is, it's easy. It has nothing to do with me and everything to do with my last name. That's the president's son. That's not me saying it. That's the president's son. He openly acknowledged it doesn't come from education or business acumen. It comes from his name. And let's face it, it is his name, but it's not his name that was garnering all the attention. Both were selling their name, one to MBNA and the other to the highest bidder. Devin Archer, in his transcribed interview, if you'll put that on the screen, please, he confirmed it. If I can get Mr. Archer's testimony on the screen. Well, while it's getting up there, because the clock's going to...
It's not up there.
Biden family, he confirmed it and said the Biden family was the product or the brand. And it's fair to say, in quotes, that Joe Biden was the brand and obviously brought most value to the brand. I make that case because the president's son was addicted to drugs and he was frequenting prostitutes, so I suspect his value of a brand was pretty low compared to his father, who is the vice president of the United States. I mean, companies brand their products, whether it's a food company or a car company or shoe company, they brand it because it provides trust by their buyers or from their buyers. Now, this committee first released a bank memo on March 16, 2023, that showed that less than 2 months after the vice president left office, State Energy HK Limited sent Robinson Walker, again a very close friend and business associate of the Biden family, $3 million. Shortly thereafter, literally the next day, and within the next series of days, Robinson Walker sent over $1 million to the Biden family and associated businesses, and they were sent in suspect incremental payments. And it follows a pattern. I can give you other instances where the exact same thing occurred. 1/3 for Robinson Walker, 1/3, 1/3 here, 1/3 there. That's how it worked out. Now, the Biden family provided no legitimate services, yet Hallie Biden, reportedly working as a school counselor, was provided some of this money. For what? What was the product or what was the service? Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into record the first bank record memos dated March 16, 2023, new evidence resulting from the Oversight Committee's investigation of the Biden family's influence peddling and business schemes, showing that the Biden family members and Biden associated businesses received over $1 million from State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese company.
Without objection to order.
Thank you. Mr. Turley, thank you for being here. What is influence peddling?
Influence peddling is to sell access or influence to an office holder to achieve some end. There's sometimes a very clear quid pro quo, which is a specific act that you want. Sometimes it's a general pattern of corruption of favoring someone. I actually, in my testimony, gave I believe it was the Canadian definition, which I thought was a particularly good one under their law. But the United States also signed off on a convention on public corruption that also has definitions that are relevant.
Mr. Dubinsky, in the remaining time, this money, these wires being sent to family members with no apparent legitimate services being rendered, is this something that you would find interest in and would yourself, if charged with it, would investigate on your own?
Gentlemen, time's expired, but please answer the question.
It would be a red flag, and I would follow up on that and see where it leads.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a point of order. I didn't want to interrupt the distinguished gentleman from Pennsylvania, but he referred to an email at the beginning of his testimony. We've not been provided a copy of that email, and I don't know where it came from. What is the source of that material?
The source of the materials from Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden sent it to the committee? Hunter Biden sent that to the committee? Because, we have a rule on this. We've got to be provided all material that's going to be entered in the record. Our colleagues keep relying on emails that are purportedly obtained from Hunter Biden's laptop, but we have no idea if those emails are authentic. As you know, you've not shared with us what you say is the hard drive to Hunter Biden's laptop, and nobody's verified them. And the
CBS has verified, and the CBS News did a forensic audit, said they're legitimate.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to have the email entered into the record.
Well, then I'm going to object to it because we don't know what the basis of that is.
We'll work on getting you an answer for that.
If I could just say, the computer repair guy who disseminated that stuff says he cannot account for the chain of custody of the alleged hard drive of the laptop. So we have no idea where that comes from.
And we'll get you the answer to that, but I would like to remind the ranking member that the president's son is now suing the repair guy for leaking his laptop. Remember, he denied it forever, and you all said it was Russian manipulation. Now it's
right. No, I agree with you, but he can't account for the custody of it either. Nobody knows.
We'll get you the answer on the source of the email. Chair now recognizes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record our own 2023 transcribed interview with our committee of Devin Archer, where he clearly states, quote, the brand was Washington, D.C., not President Biden. He was asked, the brand was really Joe Biden, and Mr. Archer responded, D.C. was the brand.
Without objection to order, it's in the record twice now.
Well, I guess it's a reminder.
So Chair recognizes Ms. Crockett from Texas.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Before I begin my questioning, I want to remind everyone that the information recorded in the FBI Form 1023 that my Republican colleagues keep citing is not evidence of anything. This form reflects years-old, secondhand, unverified information from a Ukrainian oligarch as relayed to the FBI by a confidential human source. These unverified, secondhand allegations have been repeatedly debunked and undermined, including by the confidential human source who relayed this information to the FBI. The tip recorded in the Form 1023 was thoroughly explored by the U.S. attorney handpicked by Donald Trump, which was Attorney General William Barr, and the assessment was closed. Finally, Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's former business partner who worked with the Ukrainian oligarch in question, told this committee in a transcribed interview in July that he had no knowledge of any such payments allegedly described in this form. Repeating the same lies will not somehow turn them into truths. Kind of like the election that Trump lost. Say it with me. He lost it. Repeating the same lie that he won wasn't going to turn the election around. The lost in this chamber keep pushing lies and lunacy on behalf of a multi-time loser. So if we're going to talk about China, let's go ahead and talk about China. And let's talk about the dealings. And let me point out the fact that right now, each of you has admitted that none of you are fact witnesses. We walked in without facts. And unfortunately, because what we say isn't necessarily evidence, we have wasted the American people's time, and we are going to walk out of this chamber and we still have no facts that are leading to anything. But let me give y'all a little bit of tea while we're here. So I have a document that I will ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record. It's a fact sheet on President Trump's shady business dealings with the Chinese government.
What are you entering in? A record from who?
This is from the Congressional Integrity.
Congressional Integrity Project, the dark money pack?
I object.
I object to that too.
Of course y'all gonna object, but we gonna talk about it. So, it says Trump has extensive financial ties to the Chinese government. President Trump collected millions from Chinese government-owned entities while in office. I have the best tenants in the world, President Trump was well aware of the multi-million-dollar lease to Chinese interests. President Trump promised to donate foreign government profits while in office, but he donated less than a third of his proceeds from the Chinese government. President Trump maintained 3 foreign bank accounts while in office, including one in China. President Trump's business with China raised legal and ethical concerns. President Xi loves the people of China. He loves his country, and he's doing a very good job. Let me tell you something. I don't want to talk about what y'all want to act like is some big mystery, because we keep sitting here, and Professor Gerhardt, just to be clear, as my colleagues have even tried to provide evidence, which they're not the ones to provide evidence, have you ever heard them say "if" since we've been sitting here for I don't know how long?
Yes, I've been taking a tally.
Oh, okay. Can you show us? Can you tell us what the tally is?
More than 35 times, the Republican witnesses and Republican members of the committee have used the word "if."
Thank you so much for that. Because honestly, if they would continue to say "if" or Hunter and we were playing a drinking game, I would be drunk by now. Because I promise you, they have not talked about the subject of this, which would be the president. But let me tell you something that was so disturbing as I walked in to this chamber today. As I prepared, I said, what is the crime? Because when you're talking about impeachment, you're talking about high crimes or misdemeanors. And I can't seem to find the crime. And honestly, no one has testified of what crime they believe the president of the United States has committed. But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me. This looks like more evidence of our national secrets, say on a stage at Mar-a-Lago. When we're talking about somebody that's committed high crimes, it's at least indictments. Let's say 32 counts related to unauthorized retention of national security secrets, 7 counts related to obstructing the investigation, 3 false statements, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsifying business records, conspiracy to defraud the United States, 2 counts related to efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings, 1 count of conspiracy to violate civil rights, 23 counts related to forgery or false document statements, 8 8 counts related to soliciting, and I could go on because he's got 91 counts pending right now. But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.